It's a lot of multitasking. My dad would teach me how to crimp the edges. It was just a really nice family bonding experience.
I think I'm going to make extra after this. I want to freeze bunch. What do you think?
Yeah. Oh, they look good. Yep.
Oh, this is really good.
Hello, everyone. I'm Linh Truong. You may know me from my YouTube channel, or you may know me as a student at Georgetown University. I am here today with Alexandra Harrison, an OCA in Walmart, and I'm really excited to be making one of my recipes that has been handed down through my family for many years, and it's Chinese pot stickers. So we're going to dive right on in. I'll be guiding you through, but first, I'd like to introduce my co-host.
Hello. Hi, Kaylin. I'm Alex Harrison. I am a licensed clinical social worker, and I am a therapist and alumni and family liaison from Eating Recovery Center and Pathlight Mood and Anxiety. So we are a healthcare provider that really takes care of people from both the angles of eating disorder treatment and also mood and anxiety. So depression, anxiety, obsessive compulsive disorder, and the like. And we have treatment centers all over the country. I've worked for the company, mostly treating patients directly for the last 8 years. I've been in recovery myself for over 20 years. And I was excited to be able to partner with Lynn in this because cooking has definitely been a part of like a healing process and also just like having like a more full and rich life. So, and I love hearing people's stories and I love hearing people's cooking traditions and learning them. So Lynn, thanks for sharing today.
Yeah, of course. I'm so excited because I feel like cooking with people is such a nice way to find common ground and to bond. So let's get started. I have all my ingredients here. I see you have some Napa cabbage, which is very good. You won't be needing all of it. So we're going to start off by taking some leaves. I have a leaf right here. And if you have around a pound of pork, I would say around 3 to 4 leaves for your size Napa. My Napa was really big. So I just used 2 leaves, and you're just gonna essentially dice it. Make sure you make the stems pretty fine, but the leaves can be a little bit bigger. And what we're essentially going to be doing is a shallow pickle. So we're going to be salting this Napa after it's all chopped up and then letting it sit. And we're gonna squeeze it all of water. So
I gotta ask you, does this feel like enough Napa for this situation, Lynn?
Oh, that's plenty. That's
perfect.
Plenty. Yeah, that's good. That's good. Yeah.
All right. So finely shreddy, choppy chop. That's kind of where we're going with this.
Yeah. So it'll definitely shrink when the water gets pulled out by the salt. So just like small enough, but not too small.
And then I just dump it all into a bowl and put a little salt over.
And then we'll massage it a little bit, and then we'll let it rest and do its thing.
So you grew up in Washington, right?
Yeah, I grew up in Washington State. I like to say that I go to school in the opposite Washington because people get confused.
Oh, that's right.
I've actually lived all over the country. So I've lived in California, I've lived in Maryland, I've lived in Alabama, but Washington is kind of the place I call home because it's where my family is right now.
So I am really interested to hear the story of these dumplings. So like where they come from, when you learn to make them, this is like an everyday thing, or is this like a special occasion type of dumpling situation?
Growing up, my dad was not very good at cooking. I'll be honest. I don't want to out my dad. He just, my mom was always better. She was just more nuanced, and my dad was more like, let's get a meal on the table. But if there's one thing he always succeeded at making at so perfectly each time was definitely these dumplings that we're making right now. And I remember as a kid, we would make dumplings together, and I thought it was really fun because you get to roll the dough. It's kind of like Play-Doh. And my dad would teach me how to crimp the edges. And it was just a really nice family bonding experience because it's a simple recipe, simple enough for my dad to make really well. And every time I have friends over for dinner now, it's a really great way to like get everybody involved in the kitchen. Because sometimes, you don't want just one person to be spending all the time in the kitchen. You really want it to feel more like a community. So
No, I think it's like a big deal. Do you have a lot of friends over to do cooking, like even with school in?
Yeah, so now that I'm on campus, it's been really nice to reconnect with everyone because during the pandemic, didn't really see many people for good reason. And now that we're all healthy and safe, it's really nice to be able to cook for people again. So they're often over in my kitchen or at my dining room table.
Nice.
Yeah, so now I'm just massaging the salt in.
So I'm going to show you how much I have in here. I'm wondering, like, it's shrunk down a lot already. It's not a
That's
ton.
good.
Should
That's
I
good.
make
That's
any
good.
more, or is this right?
That's good. If you're using, how many pounds of pork do you have?
The truth of the matter is, I think I'm going to make extra after this because I want to freeze a bunch.
Oh, that's
So
what I do. That's what I do. Yeah,
yeah,
it's a great like
exactly.
freezer meal. Yeah, cut some more. Like cut the rest if you want to. I don't have a perfect proportion for it, but you'll see like if it's enough just by eyeballing it, how much
Yeah.
pork you have.
So you
So.
just feel it out. I like that. I might actually do a little bit extra because I have a little bit extra pork. So you're gonna have to show me the special crimping method because I think that's the part that I've heard is the trickiest, is to crimp your dumplings.
Yeah.
They don't, like, burst open when you're steaming them.
Yeah. So you want to make sure that they're sealed nice and tight. And it's just like one of those things that become muscle memory after you do it enough times. Because if you want to feed everyone, you got to crimp a lot of dumplings, you know? So you kind of get used to it. But there's a lot of way to crimp dumplings. So as long as the job gets done and the meat is like all safely packaged away, it's good.
That's the thing about cooking, right? Like there's these dishes that I think we make with our families. They're so simple. They're just tedious and like take a lot of time. Like this is the kind of thing that you can do. I mean, like we're doing it pretty quick actually, but it seems like something you could really get an operation going on with friends like on a weekend and make like tons, you know?
Yeah, yeah. I really love the idea of being able to not only cook for someone that night of, but also so they can take it home. Kind of like how you're doing if you're going to freeze for later. I love giving people freezer bags of dumplings to take home because we always make so much. If you're going to make them, you might as well make a ton. I'm going to set that aside. Do you have your pork in a bowl yet?
I do not, but I'm about to dump it on in. Is that about time for that?
Yeah. Dump it on in. First thing I usually put in is an egg. This is like your little binder. You do an egg per pound, just about. And this is where you really need to rely on your nose buds, I guess, to make sure that everything is balanced because I don't really measure anything.
So you go with ginger first or garlic first?
I think ginger is a lot more forgiving. So we can definitely do ginger first.
And so are you thinking like a teaspoon or more like a tablespoon?
More like half a tablespoon. It's just start smelling pretty fragrant. Just be generous with the ginger. I feel like ginger is.
Oh, I love ginger and pork.
I know. And it's also the season where ginger is everywhere because of autumn.
Pumpkin spice dumplings.
Okay. And then I'm gonna put in garlic. I'm not gonna be as generous with this, but this is around a little under. That's enough. I'm gonna put in some pepper and then I'll go in with wet seasoning soon.
How much pepper are you using?
Like under a teaspoon, just about.
Are you salting or just going to the liquid?
The leftover salt from the Napa should be good, and we're also going to add in soy sauce, so we don't need salt for this part.
Okay.
We will just go in. I'm going to use sesame oil and soy sauce. You want to be pretty reserved about these because they can overpower really quick. So I just do a little under a tablespoon for soy sauce, and then sesame. 1, 2, 3, 4. You want a little bit more soy sauce than sesame oil. So it's like I always use a 3-4-5 ratio. So around 3 seconds of sesame sauce, 4 to 5 seconds of soy sauce. Just count. And then after that, you just throw in your Napa.
Okay. Oh, wait, do we need to squeeze it out first?
Squeeze it out. Yeah. So you can do that.
Wow, this liquid comes out of this so fast when she said it's crazy.
Yeah. This is the key because a lot of dumplings can be overloaded with water that affects the cooking process.
Oh, that's smart.
Are there any dishes that you really loved growing up? I know you grew up in South Carolina.
Yes.
So I used to live in Alabama, and it's like a stone throws away, right? So I love Southern cuisine.
I do too. And I grew up in the South, but I grew up with not Southern parents. So I didn't quite have like the Southern food traditions baked into my life. Like I really didn't eat grits until I was an adult. But then I learned to absolutely love them. And I love making like really creamy, cheesy, garlicky grits.
I'm a big fan of grits. I'm a big fan of chicken and dumplings, collard greens. So good. Yeah.
So I have this lovely, lovely meat mix now. It smells so good.
I almost forgot, but we got to add some onions. Do you have your green onions?
Yes.
I already pre-chopped a little bit, but you're going to want to chop around like 2 to 3 whole stems of green onion. I like using green onions because they add a little bit of color to the mix. You can use any type of onion, like sweet onion, yellow onion, white onion. And then this will be the last thing we add.
So when you're cooking for friends, what are your go-to dishes right now?
So I'm not a picky eater. My parents raised me to not be picky, so I love all types of cuisine. So I'm always trying to expand what I can cook. When I first moved to college, I started cooking a lot of Korean food because I've always grown up in pretty predominantly white suburban towns. So I didn't really start eating. I think I didn't have my first Korean dish until I must have been a junior in high school. And a lot of my friends are Korean. So I ended up learning to cook a lot of Korean food because it's actually really simple once you kind of get these like main 4 ingredients that's in every Korean dish. And I've been trying to cook Vietnamese food. You were talking about how there are just some dishes that are so simple, yet they're so tedious. And that's literally so many Vietnamese dishes. They're so simple, but they're just very time-taking.
Well, there's so many complex flavors, I think, in Vietnamese food, you know?
Yeah. Being able to explore those different types of cuisines just like in one country is really fun.
Okay, I have to ask you a question. I just threw a whole bunch of green onions into my meat mixture. Were we doing that, or was the green onions?
Yeah, we're doing that.
Okay, yeah. Saving some green onions also for the sauce.
Yeah.
Oh, look, it looks really good.
Yeah, nice. It looks really good. Yeah, you can save some for the sauce, and then this will be the final mix. I still have one more glove. Want to mix it real well.
It's funny you say that about Korean food. I started eating Korean food when I was in high school too. There was a really good Korean place right by my high school, and we could go off campus for lunch.
Oh my gosh, that's awesome.
I would go there and eat kimchi pancakes, which are, I think, my thing to make at home, actually. Do you ever make those?
I just made kimchi jjigae like yesterday. That's crazy.
Oh my gosh.
I'm like the type of person that buys giant tubs of kimchi from H Mart now because I run out so fast. So I just stock up. If you want to, Alexandra, you can take some warm water for the sealing of the dumplings.
In a little bowl.
Yeah. And then you'll dip your finger in and like go around the rim. I'll show you. So here's a little circle. And essentially what I do, I keep it in my non-dominant hand. And I put the center in the palm of my hand so you can kind of see it folds like a traditional taco. And I scoop a healthy amount of meat in, not too much, especially if it's your first time. Don't put too much in because it might squirt out. And I dip my pointer finger into the water, go around the dumpling. And then this is where it gets a little bit complex. So you're going to cup your hand like this. And then, so the meat's sitting in the middle. And you're going to take your index finger and put it on top of the meat like this. And then you're going to use your hands to fold up. So you can hold it kind of like that. And then when you crimp, you need to pinch with your thumb and pointer finger on your non-dominant hand. And then push with your thumb. And then press again with your non-dominant fingers.
Oh boy.
And all at the same time, you want to make sure your index finger is on top to push in the meat so it doesn't squirt. It's a lot of multitasking.
Squirting out all over the place.
Okay. Maybe we'll try a little bit less meat next time.
Well, this is going to be a dud. It'll be the first one I eat.
Okay.
I'll have to try another one.
Hopefully by the end, you have a cute little dumpling. And it should kind of be rounded.
That looks beautiful. Oh, that looks so beautiful. I'm close. Okay, I can feel this is going to happen.
Okay.
Send good vibes my way this time around.
You got this. So yeah, it's just index finger on top, then you cup, and then pinch, then push, pinch, then push. And then you'll kind of like figure it out with trial and error, I think.
So I'm kind of curious, like what you've been doing for self-care, like it's kind of coming out of pandemic, but kind of still being in pandemic and being on campus for the first time. It's a big step.
Yeah, it is a big step. Kind of it's tough because at the same time you're making all these adjustments to a new environment, a new space, new people. So it's really easy to neglect putting time to yourself. And I think self-care for everyone looks very different. I think social media does a bad job of really not even stigmatizing, but stereotyping what self-care would look like.
Mhm.
So, self-care doesn't mean like taking a bath or putting on a face mask. It could mean like playing a video game, hanging out with a few friends, like quietly by yourselves,
Mhm.
or reading a book. There's so many other ways to do self-care.
Right on.
This might sound a little bit oxymoronic, but for me, self-care is really driven by how my friends are able to pull me back and tell me like, "Hey, maybe you should take a break." Because it is like the people you surround yourself with that like remind you that you also need to take time for yourself. As
Yeah.
someone who like gets easily burnt out from school, work, balancing the two, having people be like, "Lynn, maybe you deserve some time to yourself," has been like one of the best ways I've remembered how to do self-care.
Yeah.
Trying to shift the narrative from self-care being selfish to being productive. I think we gotta like put self-care into a daily routine in our lives, especially if you're a college student. So
Well, and I think like depending on your family background too, like the narrative around self-care kind of translates to selfish, you know.
mhm.
Like I came from a really hardworking, like achievement oriented family. And so like self-care was kind of like the equivalent to lazy.
Mhm.
And instead the agenda was like, okay, well just keep burning the candle at both ends. Like that's and then you'll just adapt to it versus like learn how to take a breath.
Exactly, yeah. I feel like a lot of families really push for good work ethic in their kids and in their relatives. And my family is they're immigrants, they're refugees. So there's this different type of burden when you know that your parents have sacrificed so much, and it's really easy to like you yourself put that, I guess, pitfall onto yourself and think that like I'm not working hard enough. I need to keep working harder and be successful and be XYZ.
Well, and I imagine it's like hard to figure out how to like communicate that to your family, you know, like how to get support from them in a way that's like actually supportive. I feel like that's like, I don't know, the work of most of our 20s.
Yeah.
Trying to figure out like how to relate to your parents or how your parents can relate to like the adult version of yourself.
I really think that the saying that you grow more to be like your parents as you get older is really true. Because as I've gotten older, I don't necessarily grow to agree with everything my family may have taught me or the method of the way they taught me, but you
Mhm.
kind of learn to see like where they're coming from and how it's much more broader issue than just like your parents want you to follow this career path or they're like pressuring you to do this extracurricular and stuff like that. It's like at the end of the day, they just want you to have a guaranteed well-being.
Yeah.
And that's a very hard thing to connect together because you're at the same time like maybe my parents aren't they clearly don't understand what I need for my well-being right now if they're upset with me for wanting to take time to myself.
Yeah.
So that's a very hard thing to remedy.
No, I think it's really tough.
Okay, how are your dumplings looking?
Well, how they're looking is questionable. I think I just made the best one yet. So here's where I'm at right now.
No, that's exactly what you do. That's
Yeah,
exactly what you do.
I think this is the best one I've made. I think I've been putting too much filling in, and
Oh,
so I am learning from that.
I mean, it just takes practice. I mean, self-care takes practice.
True that. Well, and that I think is like something that's really important to like think about too, is that self-care is a skill actually, and it comes easier to some than others depending on your temperament. And so like the idea of saying like, yeah, it takes practice, I think is totally true. Totally true. Especially as like situations change, because I think like, you know, I would imagine like being in school or in like a serious place of just like adjusting and readjusting.
Constantly, yes. It's so easy to neglect when your social battery is telling you, you need to like take a break, or like you've been studying for who knows, like hours straight in the library and you feel like you gotta keep going. And I think now that everyone's back on campus after the pandemic, everybody's very eager to like make connections with new people and do well and be happy. And I guess that kind of like makes us forget the lessons that we might have taught ourselves during the pandemic, which is it's okay to stay inside. It's
Mhm.
okay to like take breaks from life.
No, I think you're right. I think there's a lot of pressure to like figure out like what the next moves are, because I think a lot of people kind of felt like life was on pause for such a long time.
Right. There's like this game of catch up.
This is why I like the cooking, because whether you do it like in community with people or you do it like as a solitary self like thing. I mean, mindfulness is one of those things that's, a super popular psychology term these days. And sometimes I think it's
Hmm.
almost like overused, but there can be something really mindful about like making 25 dumplings, like slowly and in your kitchen and you're smelling it. It's like a very sensory oriented activity that's so pleasant. Like the smells, my whole kitchen smells beautiful right now.
That's a beautiful point because it makes me think of my mom, who she immigrated really late in her 20s. So she doesn't have a US college degree or anything. So she doesn't work. She's a homemaker. And I never think my mom, because she doesn't get paid or she doesn't like get us health benefits, that her love and labor is any less than anyone else in the workforce. I think
Totally.
moms do so much labor, including cooking, that just goes unaccounted for. And that like making food for other people is just as beautiful as the thing as like, I don't know, making the next step in your career. It's just like the things that we label as important and necessary. We don't always think about the things we often take for granted. If you're watching this, mom, I love you. I don't take you for granted.
What's your favorite comfort food that your mom makes you?
So my mom makes this, I don't know what it's called in Vietnamese, but it's this dish that it kind of sounds stinky and disgusting, but you take sardines and you cook them in this really citrusy, tangy tomato sauce.
Mhm.
So the fishiness that you would usually expect from the brine of fish is no longer there, and it's just like very filling and just very tasty, and you serve it on top of rice with some cilantro and herbs.
Ooh, that sounds amazing.
Yeah, it's really good. I'm a big fish person,
Yeah.
and my mom also cuts fruit for me all the time, and I really like that because she'll just show up at my door. I think it's a very immigrant mom thing. They kind of just show up
Yeah.
at your door and they like offer you a plate of cut fruit, and they're like, you're studying, have some fruit. Or like, we had an argument earlier. Here's my apology and cut fruit. You know?
Well, I think like food that shows that you like took a little bit of time and like were thoughtful in it always means a lot to people.
Yes,
You know,
exactly.
when I was in my early 20s, I actually lived in kind of rural Illinois. And one of the
Oh,
first things I learned how to make was a pie crust, because it was just such a Midwesty thing to do. And it was like, that's how you show someone you really love them or you're interested in like, yeah, we're really friends now. It's like you make them a for real pie, because it takes time, right? It means like
yeah.
took time to like make a crust from scratch and let the dough really chill right and put good filling in it, and it takes forever to bake. And it's just like, man, if someone wants to say I love you to me with pie, I'm all for it.
You have to share that pie recipe. I still have not found like an ideal pie crust recipe. I always end up getting the puff pastry crusts from this Walmart or getting it pre-made. So
I had a friend, we made 12 pies in a day. So I could like actually get the technique of like, I mean, it's kind of like with dumplings. I mean, you clearly have like a good little detail oriented mind, because you can figure out how to be exact with this whole dumpling situation, which by the way, I'm still squirting pork out from like
it's all good.
dumplings all over the place.
Yeah, don't hold back on the meat. We don't want like a skimpy dumpling, so it's all good.
No skimpy dumplings. I like that. Okay, how many should we make before we try to start frying and steaming and all the things?
I would say at least make around 15 to 20. That would
All
fill about like an average size pan, and then we can make a batch. So
I think this is going to be the rest of my afternoon is like slowly filling dumpling wrappers.
Try to rope in your kids. I'm sure they'll think it's fun. I think as I've gotten older, I've learned that cooking is my love language because I really like my mom, I will cut fruit for my roommates. I will make dinners for my friends because that's kind of just how I express how I care for them. And talking about growing more like your parents, my parents weren't always the most direct with expressing their affection. And it's because, they're busy people and they kind of just think that them working is the way that they show their love for you. And sometimes when you're a teenager and you're all angsty, you like don't need that. You're like, Mom, can you just say like you're proud of me, or like, Dad, please, like, And now that I'm older, I like recognize that a lot of the things my parents did in their cooking was like their way of showing their love for me. Because I guess coming from a Southeast Asian family, we just didn't have the same tools to communicate love in the same way as some of like my American, well, I am American, and some of like my Western peers, families, they would. And it just makes me think that like, I know my parents care about like my mental health and my overall well-being as much as any other parent would, but they don't have like the same language and resources to go about it.
Well, I think like actually the language was the word I was thinking about. I think like, I mean, I say this I do a lot of family therapy with clients I have for a really long time. And usually I just say like, you're speaking the same language, but you're not, you might, I mean, everybody in the house can speak English, but it doesn't mean we all speak like the same emotional language in terms of like being able to name what we actually need from one another. And so it's like this balance of like figuring out what to ask of the people that you love, and then like, figuring out what can my parents actually give me in terms of like emotional support. And then wherever that leaves off, how do I go and find that elsewhere? Either like, inner resourcing and like give it to myself, or finding it like within my friend community. And I think like that definitely feels like most of the work of our 20s is like figuring out how you accept the limitations of who your parents are and aren't, like what they can and can't give you, and then like celebrating what they can give you, and then making peace of what they can't,
That's so beautifully put. I agree so much. I really like the term emotional language. I think that really describes like sometimes we speak differently and we need different things, and it's hard to see past that.
Totally. Even my girls like need very different things. Like my oldest daughter wants to talk about everything. And so, which I love, she's wired a little bit more like me in that way. And I love that. My younger daughter needs me to just be more like quality time and just kind of like be there with her, even in like a quiet place. And so it's like recognizing what you yourself need and figuring out how to ask for it. Work.
I feel that.
My dumplings are starting to kick ass right now, I have to
I'm
say.
so proud.
Let me rephrase that for camera. I have to say, my dumplings are really starting to come together.
Yay! I'm so happy. What makes me happy is that when someone like has trouble, I guess, speaking your emotional language, but they go out of your way to try to speak your emotional language, I feel like that's a really big sign of like love and care.
Oh yeah.
Like I'm not the best with words of affirmation because my parents didn't use a lot of words of affirmation, but for some of my friends who really like need validation in that way, I try to make an effort to go out and compliment them or like be like, yeah, you can do it. Like it shows, like when people do that for me, I always really appreciate it.
I agree. I think like learning to attune to the people around you is a big deal. And like learning that there's like different ways to love on people, different ways to feel connected is important.
Okay, I'm gonna make around 2 or 1 more and then we can get cooking.
Okay, cool.
If you like want to, you can start preheating your pan if you haven't, with some oil in it.
I'm going with trusty cast iron today for my for my dumplings. I hope that's going to be okay.
Cast iron is the best. I wish I had a cast iron.
I definitely have a decent amount. Some of them are very questionable looking.
That's okay. That's okay. Yeah, so you want to make sure like there's oil covering all of the bottom of your pan. So it's a good amount. So you'll want a bowl for your sauce, and what we need for the sauce is soy sauce, the vinegar, some sugar, and pepper, and then the herbs.
So what are you doing right now?
So I'm just making sure that my pan is hot enough. I have a medium-high heat, and then I'm just gonna line the dumplings up. So the folded crimp side goes on top, and then the bottom just kind of goes into the pan.
Oh, okay, it's just kind of like if it was like sitting down like a present with like.
Yeah.
Are they supposed to start sizzling as soon as you put them in?
Yeah, there should be some oil bubbling up. You don't want your pan too hot because then it'll get burnt before the meat cooks all the way through.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, this is like one of my favorite things to do. It's like a little game of Tetris. How many dumplings I can fit in.
Some of these look straight adorable, and some of these look like an absolute disaster.
That's part of life. That's part of life.
I know, it's very like metaphorical for life, right? You've got some beautiful moments and some moments that are like delicious, but a big old hot mess.
Yeah. All right. So once you get all your dumplings in, we can get started on the sauce. And keep some like a small thing of water on the side so you can put it into the pan after the bottoms are done browning.
Yes.
So
how many onions for our sauce?
So just one I think should be enough. Just a couple strands of cilantro. You can go ahead and chop that up pretty finely.
All right, so I'm chopping some cilantro here, and I've got my onions chopped.
Okay, awesome. I think I'm in the same boat. Okay, my dumplings are starting to sizzle. I don't know about you, so I'm just turning down the heat a little bit. So with the sauce, there's also a lot of eyeball and like taste testing. So what I do is I pour in a good chunk of soy sauce.
Okay.
Traditionally, you would use Chinese vinegar to eat with the dumplings. So growing up, my parents had to substitute Chinese vinegar with just normal soy sauce and vinegar because we didn't grow up in a lot of areas with Asian supermarkets. So once you got the soy sauce in there, I'd say like be a little bit more careful with the vinegar, like around a tablespoon and a half. And then you'll add a little bit of sugar too. I think dumpling sauces should be a little bit sweet so it counteracts the saltiness. I'm going to put it in around like a little under a tablespoon. And if you think it's too sweet to your liking, you can just try it and add a little bit more soy sauce.
And how much water?
Depending how much sauce you're making, I usually put it in around a quarter cup.
Okay.
So not that much.
It needs more sugar.
It's still a little bit more difficult. And I'm not sure. You want to check the bottom of your dumplings to see if they're golden brown. Mine are pretty good.
Mine are kind of starting to get there. Do you give them a turn before you?
Nope. You just kind of let them get there, and then you turn down the heat a little bit. And I'm gonna take some water I have in my measuring cup, pour it in, and then quickly cover it with a top.
And they have definitely done some burning. Oh, no.
It's all good. Oh, it's okay. They'll still taste good. It's okay. That's why you have multiple batches.
Like I said, half of them are going to be absolutely adorable, and half of them are going to be all over the place, but that's okay. Ooh, this is tasting really good now.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I need a little bit more sugar too.
You're right. Sweeter is better.
Okay, my dipping sauce is ready to go, so I'm gonna put it at the table. And usually I put a paper towel underneath to soak up all the oil, and then they're ready to go once you think they're done. Usually I'll take one out because I doubt my abilities to cook meat. I'll take one out and like cut it in half and see if the pork's all the way cooked through. So
I'm gonna grab one of my lightly burned ones and check the inside.
Okay, I'm taking one too. Mine's like a very nice golden brown. It looks pretty good. If it's still undercooked, just put some more water in it and the steam should be able to cook the rest. Does it taste good? That's good, yay! That is the goal.
I've redeemed myself.
Mmm.
Well, the nice thing about a recipe like this is that if you mess up a batch, you just do a next batch.
Mm-hmm.
You have lots of opportunities to recover. I
feel like that's kind of how I practice mental health and self-care too. It's just kind of like these waves because life comes in waves, and you feel like, I really got my mindfulness and self-care routine down to the T, but then next thing you know it, like something in life just smacks you out of nowhere and you're like,
Absolutely.
Okay, have you tried it with the sauce yet?
Not yet. These are like molten lava hot, so I'm gonna have to let them for a minute.
This is what I love. The sauce is like cold and the dumpling's hot, so when you dip it in, it like cools down the dumpling and it's this perfect temperature.
Okay, so I'm gonna show you what I have going on here.
Okay.
What do you think?
Yeah. Oh, they look good. You have like a little dipping bowl in the middle. That's so cute.
So are we ready to eat? Are we gonna do this?
I'm ready to eat. Okay.
I gotta say, these look amazing. And
I know, and you did them for the first time.
Yeah.
I'm so proud.
Oh, this is really good. This cilantro and the sauce is like on point.
It's so rewarding. Like it takes so much time, but it's so rewarding once you like are done and you're ready to eat.
So is this your college apartment that you're cooking in right now?
Yeah, it is. I was lucky enough to get an apartment as a underclassman, so I still live on campus and I still have to like be on the meal plan, but I get to cook, which is like so great. I really love cooking. So
it was so nice to meet you. This was so fun. I feel bad that you're so far away now.
Maybe I'll make a stop in Denver when I fly back home for Christmas and say hi to you from a distance.
Good food town.